What is up, everybody? My name is Ryan. I'm a CPA. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I'm going to be talking about, there's a lot of chatter lately about the new administration and the Republican Party proposing to abolish the income tax, the federal income tax for the United States, and also to abolish the IRS. And so I'm going to talk about that today. The chances of that happening, what that might look like fiscally, how, in my opinion, how exceedingly difficult it would be to do that. But all in all, it's just going to be my opinion, and I might be a little biased because obviously my profession relies on the federal income tax being the way it is. So I realize that, and if the income tax goes away, I don't really have much other skills. So unless I can make a career out of drinking alcohol, then that's great. But other than that, I'll just be sitting at home probably playing video games. So with that being said, our channel is here to help inform you and hopefully bring some clarity in the tax code and in the current events of what's going on that's tax and finance related. And so in this video, usually I don't really give an opinion. I try to give facts and what is right to do, but in this video is kind of more speculation based, just because abolishing the income tax is just a talking point right now. It has not actually happened yet. No bills have been passed, no bills have been introduced, just proposals have been made, things have been said. So yeah, the video would be a little different, whereas just an opinion of mine. Okay, so with the income tax, the IRS is one of the biggest revenue generators for the United States. It's how the United States makes money to do all the stuff they need to do, run the governments, run national parks, FAA, all the regulators that get paid, they need money. And so if you get rid of the income tax, how is the government going to make money? Well, one obvious answer that everyone's been talking about lately is tariffs, just mass tariffs on everything. Another answer has been a consumer use tax, which is like a sales tax, but on the federal level. Sales tax you pay when you buy goods, you pay on the state and local level, but they're talking about maybe a consumer federal tax for buying goods along with tariffs. Okay, so let's talk about tariffs. Tariffs are taxes that our government would impose on other countries if they wanted to import goods into our country. And they can range from 10%, as high as they want, but the talks have been 10% up to 40%. So for an example, let's say another country wanted to import a $10 widget into the country. They'd have to pay a 4% tax if the tariff was 40% on that to import that widget. Now, it's easy to think, on paper, we're just shifting the responsibility of our government's revenue onto other countries, but that's not really the case. In my opinion, other companies from other countries are not just going to eat that cost. So what they're going to probably do is raise the prices of their imports to cover the cost of the tariffs, which in turn would increase the prices for us as consumers here in the United States. But that doesn't get talked about much. What gets talked about is, we're shifting the tax burden to other countries. Trump calls it the external revenue service, which is kind of clever. And then, because of that, basically Americans will allegedly want to buy more domestic products, and they would also increase and encourage domestic production in the United States so that Americans would choose more US-made products. Now, that's all at face value. It sounds really good, but there's a lot of consequences here that at play. When we're living in a global economy, there's a lot of consequences that you have to consider when you start imposing huge taxes on imports. The other thing that the administration has been touting is that having tariffs will simplify the tax code for Americans. And yes, that's true. And that's what I'm saying. If they got rid of income tax and just did tariffs, I'd probably be out of a job, and consumers won't have to worry about income tax, deductions, all that crap that you worry about right now. You just pay a higher price on goods if you want something from Japan or Europe or whatever. So the taxes would definitely be simplified. However, I'm sure the tariff import and export tax code will be expanded because retaliatory tariffs might be put in place. Maybe different nuances about limits, production limits from other countries, that kind of stuff will be expanded if these tariffs were to be set. So let's talk about what would happen or what would need to happen if the income tax were to be abolished. So a whole new infrastructure of revenue would have to be put in place to replace the IRS. And that infrastructure would be tariffs. Not sure if the amount of tariffs we would collect would equal or even come close to what we're collecting with income tax. But let's say it was. Let's say we can get enough tariff income to replace income tax. Well, now there's still state income tax potentially. State income tax may still be relevant. They would just have to, all the states would have to then change their rules and their tax code a little bit, because a lot of states kind of rely on the federal tax code as like a starting point for their tax rules. And then after that, each state has their very specific things that they, specific rules and codes that they enforce. But on general, the states with income tax, they do start off with the federal income tax as a base. Now, it's probably not going to be that big of a change for many states, but still, you're going to have to get all the states that have income tax on board with the dissolution of federal income tax. With federal income taxes gone, now you get to keep mostly all of your income, which is nice. If you have to pay state income taxes, that's a bummer, but it's not going to be nearly as much as federal income tax. So that's why I say you're going to get to keep most of your income. However, what I think will happen with tariffs is the prices of consumer goods will increase up by a lot, probably more than what you would pay in taxes on income taxes if you had just kept your income tax. Okay, so because like I said before, the foreign countries will probably not eat the cost of the tariffs. They're going to want to pass the cost on to our country. So they're going to increase the prices of their wholesale goods that they import into the country, and then they're going to get taxed on it. Then whoever receives the wholesale goods will then distribute it out to distributors and retailers and all that, and they need to make a cut as well. So they need to make a profit as well. So those prices are going to be increased as well. And so, by the time it reaches you, the price of these imported goods might be 50 to 60% higher than it would have been if there was no tariffs. So, and that's just, napkin math, and it all really depends on how high the tariffs are. But consumer goods will then increase. But here's the thought process. If the foreign goods increase, maybe domestic production can keep their prices low, and then you'd be more inclined to buy domestic products. Well, as we've seen during COVID, the way that capitalism works, just the energy around it, if prices are increased in one area, from one foreign product, from one type of product, likely everybody else will raise their price as well to kind of capture that profit. You know what I mean? Even if they don't need to. So even though domestic production will increase and probably will be favored, they will probably raise their selling prices as well to kind of take part in the increased profits here from the increased imported goods. And so they might increase their prices just below imported good prices to stay competitive, but prices will increase. So in general, I think tariffs will raise prices of consumer goods across the board, domestic and foreign. And that's just a very simple example. You can get more complex, like if there are tariffs on materials to produce items in the U.S. So if if we're importing like steel or whatever, or, just whatever materials that we need to make stuff here, those materials will be of higher cost now. And so obviously production costs will be increased even if it's domestic. And that means end user costs will also increase. Now let's not forget about retaliatory tariffs that other countries may impose on the U.S. So where a lot of our production, a lot of our goods that we would produce and sell to other countries, they might then impose tariffs on those products so that our companies would have to pay additional taxes for exporting our goods to other countries. So this could become like a huge problem, like a worldwide problem, in my opinion, rather than just a United States problem. It's a way to attempt to shift the revenue burden onto other countries, but really it just creates a huge global economic consequence for imposing blanket tariffs for every country for imported goods. So the last thing I want to leave you with is, who does this really affect, right? People talk about taxing the rich and maybe giving a little break to the folks that are not rich or wealthy. But really, like, imposing tariffs and increasing the prices of consumer goods is a way to give wealthy folks a break, because, you know, people like us, we rely a lot on just consumer goods, and, you know, if prices of regular consumer goods increase by like 40%, it has a huge effect on us, right? Massive effect. Well, if wealthy people have a lot of their money just invested in the stock market or in real estate, they're not really seeing a huge effect on taxes, especially now that if income tax goes away, money invested in real estate and the stock market can just grow way, way faster now without income tax. And they don't have to deal with tariffs. They don't have to deal with rising consumer prices, because it's just stock markets. You know, if you're super wealthy, the rise of consumer goods on like little things probably doesn't affect you that much. So in my opinion, this is a way to kind of give wealthy people a break, a tax break, and to kind of keep middle class folks where they're at and where they should be. But again, this is my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments below. Please leave a like if you found this video helpful. And, you know, please subscribe to my channel. I do try to put out a lot of informative videos and try to bring clarity to the noise that's out there in the environment. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
They act like they ain't know. Guess I gotta hit them with an update. Okay. I've been getting to it when I'm up late. Hit it when you went the front gate. They act like they ain't know. Hold up. Guess I gotta hit them with the update. Really with it, I ain't got a pump fake. Killer flow and hit them with the one take. Act like they ain't know. Guess I gotta hit them with the update. Okay. I've been getting